where we talk about the adoption challenges. Now, while most of these practices, recommendations, the standards are easy to be put on paper, in reality, we have seen that it is quite challenging when it actually comes to our own infrastructure. Some of them we have never touched in years. And how do we go back and run those maturity scores against them? How do we scan those devices? We cannot even access the network. Some of them are already isolated. We don't have access to those air gap networks. But most importantly, evaluating those relevant environment is what we will try to uncover today, where we're looking at unclassified information which does not have perimeters, which means it does not have clear boundaries that is set. It still falls under the CMMC requirement as detailed in their documentation that they've released. Now, what is the desirable target for insider attacks and adversaries? We talked about air gap networks. So while it is controlled environment where nobody externally can access, it's always something that we see is that insider attack has become more prevalent, and it's always accessible to somebody in the team who may have access to the system and that we are not aware of. And that still becomes a part of the requirement to be able to run those tests and ensure that the systems are authorized uh, only to those who require accesses. And if not, what is the data flow that is flowing from left to right? And where can I isolate it? How can I implement my microsegmentation strategies for my operational technology? And how do I build it within the sub networks of my overall infrastructure? How do we determine their target level of compliance? So what is acceptable level of compliance that we build? So having an acceptable score, having a minimal set of risks and vulnerabilities is paramount, and that's something that we kind of consider it as one of the challenges when we are evaluating this compliance. But most importantly, what are the resource requirements? How much work that goes in preparing for these compliance and audit programs? We are always held up with some critical projects, deadlines, as we all see. But then, is there a dedicated focus on building and preparing this compliance program? Now, this is where we have seen that engaging with certain security vendors and also the thought leaders in the industry has helped in increasing and optimizing this process with much less effort required for me involving my own security team in this rather than having them work on their day-to-day tasks. The other important thing is it's evolving from basic hygiene. The overall maturity model, what we're seeing is evolving from its basic hygiene, what was there, which was part of the self-assessment that most of the organizations were earlier doing, to more advanced level. So here they're seeing that with this advanced level that is now coming into effect, and most of the organizations were required as of last year to be able to have some amount of advanced controls in the network before they participate in any of the DoD contracts, is the skill set shortage. So we see that when it comes to critical infrastructure, when it comes to legacy networks, unless we have people working in that ecosystem for years and years and who have the know-how on how to deal with this, it's always challenging to find specific skill sets who can come in and pick that whole ecosystem and try to build a maturity score or try to model the threat and perform those threat analysis. Also, this directly impacts on the budgets and timelines. So if I have to hire somebody who is capable of doing it, how long would it take for them to be ready to perform these audits? After that, how long does it take for these personnel to execute that, provide the reports? And so it becomes an extensive project. What we're seeing also is the requirements becoming some of the key asks from government and federal contracts. So while today it is a good to have, and most of the CMMC requirements are very specific to certain critical projects, it's becoming more and more standardized across the industries. Some of these models we see is present in NIST and IEC are also detailing out the same thing and recommending as the security best practices, which is adding up to adding up to a lot of pressure across organizations to make sure that they are starting this program as early as possible. The other thing is beyond the overall certification and compliance is spanning beyond your traditional IT and including all the connected ecosystem, your non-traditional IT ecosystem that's surrounded anything that involves connecting to your network, connecting to your infrastructure, and exchanging the data, whether be it your customers' data or your internal machine information, is now being assessed. And companies are finding it challenging to adopt this kind of an ecosystem and fit into all the existing models that has already been built. Except for that, there has to be a separate focus on it. How do we unify all of these things within the organization? The other aspect is also with the COVID, what we have seen, most of the remote working conditions and access beyond the perimeter is exposing some of the infrastructures to workers who are trying to connect remotely from their home offices, from remote sites, is also exposing this information. And how do we control this, and what kind of access level do we need to bring in? Is becoming a key, a key topic, especially when we talk to our customers on a daily basis. It's becoming a key topic that they talk.